So where do you come to get all of your news? Obviously, where you're tuned in right now, Washington Informer. We're so happy to have you join us as we welcome Tonia Wellons, who is the CEO and president of the Greater Washington Community Foundation, who for 50 years has been doing such amazing work here in the District of Columbia. And I actually got a chance on Wednesday to celebrate with them as many people in the area celebrated the wonderful work they're doing at the African American History Museum. And it was such a great time. So we have a lot to talk about, obviously, all that they've been up to over the past 50 years, what they're doing now, and of course, that amazing gala on Wednesday night. Without further ado, welcome, Tonia, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really, really excited and continuing to beam in the glow of what we've been able to accomplish, and especially the gala on Wednesday night.
Oh my goodness. It was such a great time. So I definitely have some very pointed questions about Wednesday. But before we even get into the nitty gritty, let's start with how are you doing? How are you feeling? And how is Greater Washington Community Foundation celebrating?
Great. So I'm okay. I'm a little bit tired. If I
It's Friday. Thank you for being with us as the week ends and wraps after a ridiculously long week for you.
We hosted 3 events on Wednesday. We had a legacy luncheon with donors who have decided to include the Community Foundation in their estate plans. And the professional advisors that referred them to us. Then we had a VIP reception at about 5 o'clock to acknowledge our sponsors for the event, and then we had the big show that started at 6:30 with about 500 of our closest friends from across the region.
Oh my goodness! Well, we know that 50 is such a milestone, but why did you all feel it was so important to celebrate in such an appropriate way, but the way that you all did with all of these different activities and programming?
Yeah, it takes a lot to get to 50 years. And we really wanted to make sure that we acknowledged all of the people who were instrumental in establishing the Community Foundation back in 1973. So we wanted to tell the story about our history at a museum of national history, African American history. We recognized Terry Freeman, who was the longest serving first Black woman CEO of the Community Foundation. And then many of her former staff members and trustees were in the audience. They're still in town. And then we announced a really big campaign that I'd love to talk a little bit more about as we continue our conversation. So there were so many reasons to go all out for 50 years of service. I'll share this too. We've dispersed over $1.7 billion in philanthropic capital to the region and beyond over the course of those 50 years.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's something to celebrate. I wish we had like the chorus that they play on the radio, the clap track. But truly applause, which I think is a great transition to obviously your big announcement this past week, but also the work that you've been up to here recently.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm so excited because we have an amazing staff, and I want to just acknowledge them and all the work that they did to pull the event together. But we have an amazing staff that does donor advisory services to our clients every single day. I have a program team, a community investment team that's responsible for developing our requests for proposals and making grant decisions across a broad range of issue areas. And then we have, a donor services team who's really helping funders to establish their funds, to figure out what they care about and how it can best serve our immediate community. And so just last year, we dispersed about $80 million in grants to the region. I'm excited because we have a new health equity fund. That's a $95 million fund that is specifically to focus on the social determinants of health in Washington, D.C., specifically. And then there's the big campaign, which I'm sure I can talk about at great length. But our day-to-day grant making is it's robust, it's region-wide. We are applying both a racial equity lens and an economic mobility lens. I shared, Micha, that our new North Star is really around closing the racial wealth gap in the greater Washington region, which means we got a lot of work to do. We can't do it alone. We have to do it in partnership with almost every major institution in town, government, private sector, and the nonprofit sector, along with our peers in philanthropy.
Oh my goodness. So you're telling me also that your staff doesn't sleep. Which it does not show because y'all were looking good on Wednesday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was talking to my team earlier today. I was like, oh my God, everyone looked so great.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know that we were just working around the clock to get everything ready, but they really shined, and I'm really happy about it.
Well, absolutely. So, I think, and maybe we should have started with this, but for the people who know the Greater Washington Community Foundation, know the name, have seen some of the work that you've done over the past 50 years, can you just sort of synthesize exactly what the foundation is and a little bit, I guess, about how Washingtonians and those in the DMV can tap in and support?
Absolutely. So the Community Foundation was established as a sort of a broad-based public charity. And like many community foundations across the country, our asset base is really donor advised funds or field of interest funds. Oftentimes families or individuals set up funds at the Community Foundation and trust us with providing them advisory services on how to best make decisions about which nonprofits to support, which issue areas require more attention. So we house those funds, we manage those assets. We also have discretionary resources that are either left to us through an endowment or through a bequest. So if a family loves Washington, D.C. or Northern Virginia, Prince George's or Montgomery County, you can say in your will, you want to leave, a portion of your estate to the Community Foundation to support, the issues of poverty or to support scholarships for low-income kids. We are able to manage those resources based on your charitable interest. And then we also, Micha, because we have our finger on the pulse of what the community says it needs, we're able to inform donors about what the community needs most, right? So while you might have an interest in X, if the community is saying, what our main issue is, it's an economic issue where there aren't enough resources going into the hands of people who need it most, then we listen to that and develop strategies and interventions and guide our donors toward those strategies and interventions. So I say we have three core businesses. We're an asset manager, we provide donor services, and then we're community leaders. And you probably heard this, Micha, when Terry Freeman was talking. We often serve as the community quarterback when there's a crisis too. So whenever there's a crisis, from the 9/11 attacks on the Pentagon to the financial crisis in 2008 and 11 to the most recent COVID-19 pandemic, we are the recipient of community gifts and gifts to the community, and then we determine how to best apply them or disperse them with nonprofits in the community who can best respond to those needs.
Just such important work. And I want to emphasize again that we all are celebrating in the 50 years that you all have been contributing so much to the DMV in such a great way. How do we get to another 5 years, another 10, and another 50?
I'd say thoughtfully and boldly. The needs in our region, I would say we've done well in addressing many things, and new needs continue to emerge. We want to make sure our community foundation is responsive, but also proactive. And so we're trying to raise resources to help us to be able to do both, to respond to the most pressing needs that our community has right now. But we're looking to also build permanent resources or an endowment so that the community foundation can be here for the next 50 years. So part of our agenda is to raise and deploy resources that help put, savings in children's names as early as kindergarten, so that when they graduate from high school, they're able to redeem these resources to use for education, for entrepreneurship, to have can you imagine starting a retirement account for your kid as early as kindergarten? So those are some of the interventions we're trying to do now, because we believe that we know that the research says when a kid has an account in their name as early as third grade, they begin to perform differently academically. And then kids with trust in their names, when they graduate, they are 4 to 5 more times likely to go to college than those who aren't. And so we're trying to get those kids started at an early age. We want more families to have access to be able to bridge the difference between what wages pay and what the cost of living is in our region. Through guaranteed basic income pilots. That's one of the strategies that we're investing in. And then we're also trying to endow our future. We really want to make sure that we put aside resources now that will grow and perpetuate themselves so that we can continue to be here as an institution of trust and partnership for many, many years to come.
I love that. And, for us as news relayers, I'll say that really helps us know what you all find important and what you have focus on. So I guess I have to ask this now. Tonia, please come back. Please come back to WinTV. I just am, it's so inspiring and wonderful to hear you and the wonderful work that you all are doing and the passion that you have behind it. Before we wrap, is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel our readers should know?
Well, first, let me just say thank you for having me. I really am excited to be able to, share my excitement and enthusiasm with you. Thank you for coming to the event, and we'll come back anytime you want us to. But I want to make sure I share that our ambition is to raise $50 million over the next 3 years to support the Community Foundation's new 10-year strategic plan, strategic vision for economic justice in the Greater Washington region. And Micha, I will come back and talk about that any day of the week.
Awesome. Well, it's great. It's such an awesome goal for us to be able to follow and to check in and see how you all are doing over the next few years in that ambitious and really important goals. So, oh my gosh, this is the way to feel, fired up at the end of your Friday.
On a Friday. I love it.
This has been awesome. Thank you. I know, again, this has been a marathon week for you all. And so just really cannot express our appreciation enough for wrapping it up with the Washington Informer and all our awesome viewers up for WinTV. And so, as I always say, those watching, sharing is caring. You all might not be watching this because you might have started your Cinco de Mayo happy hour. That's fine. But then share it with your folks whenever you tune into this. It's really great information, and it's news that you and the entire community can use. Thank you so much to the Greater Washington Community Foundation for 50 years of service. And thank you again, Tonia, for being with us today.
My pleasure. You can learn more about us at thecommunityfoundation.org. We would love to connect with all of you. Thank you so much, Micha.
Thank you. Take care.